4 words. That's all it takes to start a genuine moral argument among total strangers online. It's their job. Say that about picking up your own popcorn bucket at the movies, and you will find out exactly how strongly people feel about it. Today, we're getting into the tiny test that apparently reveals a lot more about a person than just their trash habits. The scenario is almost embarrassingly small. You finish a movie, you're holding an empty popcorn bucket, a drink cup, some candy wrappers. There's a trash can right by the exit, a few steps out of your way at most. Do you throw it away on your way out or just leave it on the seat? And the specific phrase that keeps coming up to justify leaving it is, "leave it." That's what the staff is for. It's their job. And that one sentence turns out to be an almost perfect way to instantly sort people into 2 very different camps. The overwhelming response, and this really was overwhelming, was some version of no, you take your trash with you, obviously. It's genuinely no extra effort. The can is right there. You're already walking past it on your way out the door. Carrying an empty popcorn bucket 10 extra feet is not a meaningful burden on anyone. But the reasoning behind why people care this much goes a lot deeper than just tidiness. One description stuck out as basically the perfect explanation. The "it's their job" excuse is shorthand for "there are underlings who exist to clean up after me." And using it says something pretty specific about how someone views other people's labor, and honestly, other people in general. And that's really where this stops being about popcorn and turns into something people take genuinely, sometimes surprisingly. Personally, people who've actually worked in customer service, movie theaters, fast food, retail, describe a very consistent reality. Staff between showings often have somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes to turn over an entire theater, sometimes less. And that's if nothing goes wrong. That time is meant for spills, for genuinely difficult messes, for problems a customer couldn't reasonably fix themselves, not for scooping up every popcorn bucket, an entire sold-out theater full of people decided wasn't their responsibility. One former usher described working during a famously chaotic opening weekend and said roughly 2/3 of people did throw their own trash away, meaning a full third simply didn't, which across a packed theater adds up to an enormous amount of extra unnecessary work dumped on 1 or 2 employees who are also expected to have the next showing ready to go in minutes. There's a comparison that came up constantly in this conversation, and it might be the single clearest way to understand why this bothers people so much. It's the exact same energy as leaving a shopping cart in the middle of a parking lot instead of walking it 20 extra feet to the corral. Defenders of that habit say the same thing. That's what the cart guy is paid for, and the response is nearly identical. Sure, they're paid for it. But that doesn't mean making their job harder is somehow acceptable. One person pointed out, only half joking, that failing to return a shopping cart despite being fully capable of it might be the single most universally agreed upon sign of a bad person on the entire internet. To be clear, nobody's saying you need to sweep the floor or scrub a spilled soda out of the carpet yourself. If you drop your entire popcorn or knock over a full drink, genuinely leave it. That's exactly the kind of mess the cleaning crew exists for. The actual line almost everyone agreed on is simple. Anything you can pick up yourself with basically 0 extra effort, you pick up. Anything beyond that, that's a legitimate cleaning job, not laziness. But here's a wrinkle that actually complicates the just be a decent person narrative, because it turns out this wasn't always the norm at all. Several people who grew up in the 1970s and 80s described a genuinely different cultural default back then. Leaving trash in a movie theater or even tossing garbage out a car window wasn't seen as rude. It was just normal. Trash was, by multiple accounts, simply everywhere, and nobody thought much of it. The expectation that customers clean up after themselves is, in a lot of ways, a relatively modern shift, tied partly to changing social norms and partly to theaters running with dramatically smaller cleaning staffs than they used to, which reframes the entire debate a little. It's not that one group of people is inherently more decent than another. It's that the social contract genuinely changed, and some people either didn't get the update or are deliberately holding onto the old one, sometimes specifically because it benefits them personally. There's also a genuinely interesting theory about why some people, often according to the discussion, a specific older demographic, still don't clean up after themselves at the movies specifically. The idea is that some people mentally categorize a movie theater closer to a restaurant experience than a fast food one. Somewhere between a full-service outing and a clean-up-your-own-mess one. If a server clears your table at a sit-down restaurant, some people apply that same mental model to a movie theater, even though the actual staffing and time constraints are completely different. It's less "I'm better than the staff" and more a genuine, if outdated mental model of what kind of experience they think they're paying for. which is honestly a fair, more generous read on people who otherwise seem totally reasonable and considerate in every other part of their lives. The 20% tippers, the people who always return their shopping carts, but somehow draw a completely different line specifically at movie theater seats. So does throwing away your own popcorn bucket actually matter in the grand scheme of things? Obviously not on its own, but that's kind of the point people kept circling back to. It's not really about the popcorn bucket. It's a tiny, almost meaningless action that costs you nothing, that happens to be an incredibly clean, low-stakes way to demonstrate whether you think about the people whose job it is to clean up after you, or whether you don't think about them at all. It's the same reason the shopping cart thing became an entire internet-wide personality test. Small, optional, effortless kindness is apparently one of the clearest windows into how someone actually treats people they'll never see again. And there's something almost funny about how strongly people feel about something this small. Nobody's proposing legislation about popcorn buckets, but ask a room full of strangers what they think about "it's their job," and you'll get a surprisingly passionate, remarkably unified answer, which says a lot about a country that, whatever else it argues about, seems to have a pretty strong shared opinion on cleaning up after yourself when it costs you literally nothing. If a popcorn bucket can turn into a full personality test, wait until you hear the actual etiquette rules for showing up to an American wedding. Some of them are going to surprise you, and it's coming up next. Be honest in the comments. Do you take your trash with you at the movies, or are you team "it's their job"?